Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Asher, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Steam Shuffle. And technically, this is not actually a Steam Shuffle, if you will, because this actually runs out of Bethesda's own launcher, similar to a Battle.net launcher. And we are looking at the Elder Scrolls Legends. It is a collectible card game based on the Elder Scrolls series. Now, let's put a disclaimer out here right off the bat. The Steam Shuffle is a first impression series. It is not a comprehensive review series. That being said, I've put about 6 or 7 hours, I believe, into playing this thus far. So I'm going to go over as much as I can in a way that will be beneficial to someone who's not used to playing the obvious elephant in the room that is Hearthstone. And let's address that for a moment. So this game is incredibly similar to Hearthstone, going down to the game mechanics all the way to the cards. Some of them even feel to be carbon copies of those cards. So yes, it's going to be very, very similar. That does not mean necessarily a bad thing. I believe in the gaming industry that it's very difficult to rip off another game short of stealing art assets, more or less. Pretty much every game franchise we have has iterated and built upon a game prior to it and just made it better. That's how the gaming industry works. That's how we get better and better games. So the concept is very similar, but it is different, and I'm going to try to address those differences as best I can. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. The options to play are your versus battle. You have a story mode, a solo arena, and your versus arena. So you'll be very familiar with the versus battle and the versus arena. And the story mode would be akin to a Hearthstone adventure. I'm going to do my best to refrain from comparing this to Hearthstone as much as I can, but it's nigh impossible to do it because I have hundreds of hours into Hearthstone. I've been playing that since closed beta, so I have that background, and going into this, you're going to feel right at home. If you are an avid Hearthstone player, you're going to be able to pick this up fairly quickly. But there are some very, very notable differences that make this play like a completely different card game. So let me jump into my card collection. We're going to go back here, and I'll be able to discuss some of the mechanics of the cards. So you have different attributes up here. There are 6, I do believe. Well, 5 and then dual attributes and then neutrals. And your decks consist of either 1 or 2 attributes or the neutrals, and there are very, very few neutrals. I have roughly a third of the cards in the game already, and I believe, right, if my math's right, there's about 450 in the game. This just came out in open beta as of today, so everything that you're seeing is subject to change. Beta is beta. We got that out of the way. So the decks that you see on the right, I've only made one of these, which is the Spell Sword. The rest of them were actually awarded to me playing through the story mode, and they're actually comparable decks. They're not just thrown together in a rush. They actually do make sense, and they do play well. And that's one thing that I've noticed so far that actually has a leg up on Hearthstone, is giving you a lot of options without having to pay for them, because this is a free-to-play title, and the business model is near identical, if not exactly identical in pricing and structure to Hearthstone. But in Hearthstone, you don't get this many cards at the start. I can tell you that much. You actually feel like you can make something and do something with it. Keep in mind that not everyone, pretty much everyone has the same exact cards right now. So, but right now there are no more planned wipes of cards, so you can purchase them, and you will keep them as far as we know at this time. So let's go into the structure a little bit. These 5 different archetypes. Again, you can hold 2, and that kind of determines your class. You cannot, if you take the strength attribute and the intelligent attribute, you cannot have any cards out of these other 3. You can grab neutrals, which I have not even 24 neutrals, so they're not they're very few and far between. You're going to be really sticking to your class archetype, unlike whereas Hearthstone, you can fill your entire deck with neutrals if you really wanted to. Some of the big differences are the card decks are 50 instead of 30. And your mana, as far as I can tell, the max mana is 12. There was one play that I did in story that I actually went over that. I don't know if that was either a modifier or if it was a glitch, but I believe that the max mana is 12. And if I make any factual errors on this, please comment and correct them for me, because I would like to know myself. Again, I'm going off of what I have seen thus far and my previous knowledge of the other card game. So you still have 10 cards that you can hold in your hand. You start with 3 cards in your hand, and you can mulligan all 3 of those cards. But the way that they do this is a little bit differently. You still have 30 health, but you actually, every 5 health you lose, you will draw a card. And that is a very key defining mechanic that changes things up on this. They're called, there are what's called known as prophecy cards. And you'll see some of them here. What prophecy does is if you pull that card, when you take that damage, it activates your prophecy effect, and you can play that card immediately with no mana cost. So you can actually, more or less, you can interrupt the other person playing. From my understanding, I feel like I know very little about Magic the Gathering, but I feel like the way they do the deck archetypes with the certain elements that you're sticking with, that may be more akin to Magic the Gathering. You don't tap land or anything like that, of course, but from my very, very limited knowledge, take that with a grain of salt, it feels kind of Magic the Gathering-ish to me. The fact that you can play things in real time and actually interrupt the opponent's whatever their action is they're doing, and that makes this feel a whole lot better to me, because you're not just getting hit in the face. There is a chance that you can actually react and stop some of these things. The other big difference is there are 2 lanes instead of just one board. There's basically 2 boards. One side is a standard side that you would be used to in Hearthstone, where you just play things. The other side actually gives your creatures stealth for 1 turn. And coinciding lanes cannot attack one another. So unless this card specifically says affects both lanes, you are basically dealing with 2 playmats at the same time. And the fact that you can give stealth on the first turn to any minion in the game makes it to where buff cards, which in this are equipment, are much more prevalent. And the play style is a lot slower to me. I don't know about you guys, but I get really fucking sick and tired of playing aggro decks and against aggro decks all the time in Hearthstone. There's like 3 maybe viable control decks, and the rest is pretty much aggro, and this is not nearly as aggressive, and I'm actually really liking that. There's more of a strategic element to this. So before I touch on too much more, I'm going to play a match just to kind of show off what it looks like. We'll go ahead and do a practice match. I'm going to pick one of the pre-made decks. I'm not going to use mine. And I'm going to go with the Dunmer Avengers, excuse me. Just to clarify, I'm not a big Elder Scrolls fan. I've never really been into the game, so I apologize on my pronunciation. I recognize some of the names of different races and things like that, but for the most part, a lot of it's going to be foreign to me. So let's jump in here, and there's a whole lot I want to show off. This is going to be a longer video. I know it is. Fun fact, I actually did a take prior to this, and I completely botched it up. That one was about an hour long. We're going to try to keep it under that as best I can, because that was a little too long. Alright, so we start out with 3 cards in hand, and we can mulligan whatever we want. I'm going to mulligan that 1 cost. I think I'll keep that 3 cost, because there's a very important difference that I want to show here. If you go second, which I am, the coin that you would have in Hearthstone that gives you 1+ additional mana for that turn, you can actually use it 3 times. So it's basically having 3 coins in your hand. Now that can be destroyed by certain creatures that can affect support cards. So you can actually take that out of the game entirely. I have only seen 1 card that does that thus far, but it is there. So you played a little 1/1, but it does have lethal. Lethal is if they attack you, it kills you regardless of your health. Last Gasp is going to be a death rattle effect. If they die, that effect happens. And actions are spells. Charge is exactly the same, and they can play on the turn that you play them. They can attack. And drain is, as you see, when this deals damage to your turn, you gain that much health. So, how do we want to do this? I think I'm going to play my mana, and I'm going to contest him in this lane. Again, remember, there are 2 lanes in this. These guys will fight, but if I put something over here, they cannot attack over here. Everything is separate unless there's card text that indicates otherwise. You can play with the scroll a little bit. That's about all you can do. You can't click anything else. Let's see what we got here. I could finish off that. Alright, so I'm going to attack him. Use my finish off. And we're going to leave that guy alive for now. Maybe not the best play, but that's what I'm going with. So, right off the bat, it's my first game I played. I was like, this is Hearthstone, man. I am very familiar with this. I have no problem picking up these concepts. Almost carbon copy. It doesn't become that apparent that it's that different until you actually really start getting into it and seeing the way that these games are actually playing out. So, I've got 3 mana on him. I could do my guard, which is taunt. They have to attack that first. But I think we'll go ahead and leave them uncontested as of right now, because I don't want to deal with that death rattle effect. And I'll smack him. Another important aspect is you start with 30 health, but anything that gives you health, you can go over 30. I don't know how high you can go. I've made it to 40 before, and you'll see that I went under my 25 mark, so that little rune activated, and it drew me a card. It wasn't a prophecy card, but it did draw me a card. Okay. How do we want to do this? I think we need to kind of block up a little bit over there. I like this guy quite a bit. And I'll go ahead and put a guard over there as well. And we'll smack him again. Okay, let him play through his turns here. I'm having a really good time with it thus far. I kind of wanted to comment on the card art a little bit. It definitely has that more realistic vibe to it. Let's go ahead and buff our guy here. Take that taunt out. But it seems kind of plain because, one, they're slimmer, so they just don't have as much of a presence on the board. And if you'll notice, things happen really fast in this. And I've found myself a few times, more so because I don't fully understand some of the cards and how they work, but I find myself a lot having to check up here and see what actions took place, because if effects start flying off, they fly through it real quick. I attacked that one. I did the 3 damage from my death rattle to the guy over here, and if you have multiple things going on like that, it gets nuts. Another very important difference that you'll see here is spells can target stealth creatures, like so. That is a huge difference in gameplay. You still can't target them with minions, but spells play a very important role in controlling the right lane more so than the left lane. And it's interesting because that may be the case, but there's not very many spells in the game, at least from what I've seen. There is a whole lot more equipment, which would be actually buffs, than there are actual spells. And I actually kind of like that. I like that it's just more, it feels more like a fight with your minions than trying to just amass a whole lot of spells and just do massive damage. From what I've seen thus far, the spells are not like your 6 damage fireballs. I haven't seen anything like that. This is probably the closest that I've found. This is a support, which it's a legendary card. It costs 7 mana, and I can deal 2 damage to a creature. And the next turn it does 4 damage, and the next turn it does 6 damage. So that's a 7 cost weapon, but that can turn a game around as well, and I'm going to do that right now. That guy, I need to play something to imprison, which I should have done instead, actually, now that I look at it. Whoops! Probably a misplay on that. That's okay. We'll clear them out. If I hit her, She is going to buff him to 10, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because I'll take that 10 damage to the face. It's going to proc 2 of my runes. Didn't get a prophecy on either one of those, but I can control him fairly well. Now that's one that we haven't seen that is a little bit different. Breakthrough is any overkill damage that you do when you hit an enemy. So say I throw this guy out there. He has 3 health. If he hits him, he'll kill him, and the remaining damage will hit me. So it's kind of like a cleave onto the enemy hero, but it's much more prevalent than the flavor text that you'd see on very few cards in Hearthstone. How do we want to do this? May not be able to get my way out of this one. Tell you what, we'll play him. I'm going to soul split on him, which will trigger his effect and give me 2 more minions that are actually more powerful than him. It hit him in the face. That's not quite what I was wanting to do. We could give him 5 health by killing that. That doesn't use any mana to do. And give this one +2/+1 so it can contest him if he decides to do so. And I'll play him over there. So I did quite a bit there in that turn. I think the fact that you only start with the 3 cards also helps with the speed of the game. I think it helps quite a bit. And we're going to be able to clear that out and keep him locked down here real quick. Actually, you know what? That will do 6. Let's kill him out outright. Use our 2/1. Smack that guy. Finish it off. There we go. We could put a ton over here, but he's got a lethal guy over there, so he could kill him pretty quick. But I really don't have much of a choice right now. I'll put another one over here. So what that effect was, it's summon +1/+1 and lethal if the top card of your deck is of the agility stat. Remember, you only have 2 types in your deck, so it's pretty much, depending on your amount of either card, you could make that a 50-50 chance. I feel like it's kind of a coin flip. One of us is probably about to die. I have a feeling this is going to get pretty crazy. Alright, so 5, 8, 11, 13, 15. He has 21. Nope, can't quite kill him off. And those little 1/1s. Man, alright. I'll get rid of the lethal. I'm going to do as much damage as I can here. He's going to start drawing cards like crazy. And that's a mechanic that you really have to be wary of, because if you actually hit someone, say if he had 12 health and I hit him for 12 and killed him outright, he does not get to draw those cards and get the chance to draw a prophecy card to stop it, because there are prophecy cards that can heal you and may actually save you in that situation, but you don't get it if it's exact lethal on 1 hit. So if you have a chance to do that, that's the way you need to do it, because otherwise you're risking a chance of getting yourself killed by pulling a prophet that can completely turn the game around. 2, 5, 8. That is exact lethal except that guy right there, so we can't get past him. We're going to kill him off. But we're close. We are very close. Go ahead and get him locked up. We still got our taunt. We're sitting on 5 health. He's got 5 damage though. I think we're going to have to risk it and sacrifice her. Makes him a little bit stronger, but it gives me my steel sword, and that's game. Nice. Very nice. He didn't get a prophecy card to win it, so I wasn't able to show off the prophecy effect really in action, because I don't think I pulled a card to do it, but it is there. You saw my level on there, which is level 11. Leveling up in this actually has a very unique effect. It actually, some cards are considered novice cards, and when you level up, those novice cards also get a chance to level up, and it's either going to, so for instance, we got a 2/2. It will either turn into a 2/2 with an effect or something similar, or you get a option between two choices, the 2/2 with this effect or a 3/5 without an effect. So you get to pick what you want it to evolve into. Now, I do have some questions about that I don't fully understand the concept, because does that mean that I never get a chance at getting that other card? Or does that mean that I need to get another novice in that of the original so I can upgrade it to the other style? I don't know that 100%. And I don't know if you have more than one, if it upgrades all of them. So that I'm a bit unclear on. You also, with the story mode, which I found was fairly interesting, is the story itself, for me, again, I'm not an Elder Scrolls fan. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of story. Story was really boring, okay? There are 20 chapters currently in the beta, so I have no doubt that they will add more later. If they're going to charge for them or not, that's anyone's guess at this point. But the story itself was boring, but the fights were not. The fights would be akin to adventure mode in Hearthstone, where you have different modifiers in it, or you have sometimes when you win, you'll have a scenario that you come across, like a wolf, for example. This is one of the first ones. Do you adopt the wolf and you get that wolf as a card, or do you abandon the wolf and you get a different card that's based on that scenario? I don't know if there's a way to go back and get those cards, or if I just have to open them up in packs. Not 100% on that. I will say I have a lot of options, and I could build a lot of different types of decks with what I have already been given. That is for certain. So 30% of the cards in the game without ever paying a dime is pretty good. And you can earn gold in a majority of ways. You can do your arena runs for 150 gold, or you pay $2 for it. Everyone knows that thing if you have played Hearthstone. What you don't know is a solo arena. And the solo arenas, I think, is one of the best things that this game does that Elder Scrolls Legends does that Hearthstone does not. And let me show that to you. So what you see right now, I have already drafted this deck. And there are 9 fights that you can do. 8 of them you can do in any order that you want. The 9th one is a boss, and each one might have a modifier, it might not. If you win, you get to add an extra card to your deck out of a random drop. So I'm going to grab that one because it's pretty boss. And I've beaten 1 on this run. I have done a full 9 win, and from that full 9 wins, I got 80 gold, a card pack, 50 gold that said it was a promotion award, so I'm not 100% sure. It was in parentheses, so I don't know exactly how that plays into it. So it was 130 gold total, a card pack, an epic quality card, and a legendary card. So if you can hit that 9 wins, they're quite profitable, and you do have 3 chances, just like you would in a Versus Arena. And Versus Arena is just like you would expect it to be. In story mode, there were some maps that were just the single card format, that you had room for 1 lane and it had 6 cards on it. That does not happen in Versus, at least from as far as I can tell. Standard format is the 2-lane format. So I want to pick one of these to see if it'll put a modifier in. See if we can get one. Master of the Hunt. You do get titles that you can unlock. So I have the Untouchable title that I earned by beating someone without taking any damage. So I thought that was cool. You can get little titles for different achievements, more or less. Move a friendly creature and draw a card. That was a really unique card that I picked, and I just wanted to play around with it. Healing Potions, not a bad choice at the top. That basically gives me 5 more health at the start of my turn, and he's a little high, but I think we'll keep him anyways. Alright, so 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going first, so let's pop that Healing Potion. I now have 35 health instead. So health and armor are basically universal in this. There is no armor, it's just all health values. What did he play? He's got draw a Pilfer card. Okay, so a Pilfer card is a card that hits your opponent. It makes the effect happen. So if he hits me directly, the guy will draw a random card from his deck that costs 0. Now, I believe that means that a 0 cost card he will draw, not that he draws a card and then that card costs 0, because that would really suck. Trying to juggle 2 different lanes at the same time, it is not as easy as it looks. There's a lot more of a strategic element that goes into this. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but I can't emphasize that enough. These little simple touches are what make this game feel completely different. And I think that's kind of what I've lost with Hearthstone is I see the same things all the time. Yes, that will happen with this. Yes, net decking will become a thing in here. But as of right now, everything is new, so it's kind of the Wild West out there. There aren't any net decking websites that I'm aware of or anything that I can think of off the top of my head for this game. Yes, they will happen, but right now they're not. They're not here. Now, since the precursor of this is so similar, a lot of people are going to go into this having a lot better understanding how to play, because I know myself, Hearthstone was probably it wasn't my first card game, but it was definitely my first digital card game, aside from maybe like the Pokemon trading card game back on Game Boy Color. So, what does she do actually? Okay, let's get rid of her. Why not? Get a little bit of health back for it anyways. So, you're going to go into this with people that do know what they're doing, because I guarantee you this is going to draw the Hearthstone crowd because of the similarities. I think I don't want to say that I like this more than Hearthstone, but I think a lot of that stems from the fact that I'm more familiar with Hearthstone and I have a lot invested in Hearthstone, and that's what Elder Scrolls Legends is going to have a problem with, is drawing the Hearthstone crowd. I'm sure they know this. That's the big daddy to beat. That's all there is to it. And that typically is what ends up happening with Blizzard games anyways. So the question is not what can I do similarly to copy Hearthstone. The question then becomes how can I do something different? Because it's so massive, it's going to be very difficult to compete with it. So there's not a whole lot that I can say that Hearthstone does that Elder Scrolls Legends does not. There's not very many things that it offers. I have a very difficult time coming up with any. There are more cards, but it's been around longer, so obviously there will be. So it's because it's simply more established. This does things that Hearthstone does not do. The solo arena that I'm doing right now, that's not really in Hearthstone. The adventure mode, yes, is in Hearthstone, but in this one it does it a little bit differently. It's a continual story. I'm getting completely slaughtered in this fight, by the way. Let's go ahead and do that. Summon a guy in each lane. And throw him down to contest over there. Anyways, the mechanics that it adds into it, it's like adding on to what's already a great game. And it's so refreshing to see. This guy is talking about aggro decks earlier. This guy is actually playing a pretty heavy aggro deck, and it may be because I just didn't draft this very well. Oh, there's a prophecy card, so I can deal 3 damage and gain 3 health to anything of my choosing. And I can use this on something that hasn't attacked me to stop it, which I'm going to have to do or I'm going to die. Or I could have killed that 9-3 right there. I'm doing this simply to show sometimes those prophecy cards are going to save your life. So the prophecy cards add a level of RNG that is not prevalent in a lot of the actual cards themselves. Unlike with Hearthstone, there are so many RNG style cards. This has, I think, more of a strategic element to it simply because of that. Because you don't have the crazy random stuff going on. And that's okay if you like that as well, because I like that. But sometimes I feel like I get screwed over by the RNG gods. And if you don't want to feel that as much, or maybe just in a little bit of a different way, you have this as an alternative. I think this is a great alternative to Hearthstone, or play both of them, because again, they are both free to play. If you get tired of one, go jump into the other one for a while. And competition is not a bad thing. It breeds innovation, and it makes each of the others work harder to get their people to play and buy their card packs instead. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually like having, as a consumer, we benefit from this. This is not a ripoff. This is an innovation on a already existing IP. That's another big draw, is there's people that play Elder Scrolls that will not touch WoW. And probably vice versa. I can't think of that there would be too many because of how similar the genres are, and I know they're going to draw a lot of similarities from it. And this is not a case of Battleborn versus Overwatch, where they were two completely different games that basically were just the only same thing that they had going, where they were both hero shooters. It's not like that. Yes, these are very, very similar. It's going to be what your cup of tea is that you like more. I'm liking it. I'm liking it quite a bit. And it's free, so everyone can go and try this. And it is an open beta right now, so you can try it all you want. I will say that it feels like maybe this one was lower budget. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but just it feels... I don't like to say cheaper, but to me it kind of does. It's a little more bland than the colorful, cartoony world of Warcraft. And that may appeal to a lot of people. One of the other things that makes me think about that are the repeat voice actors for many of the cards. Specifically, that one that I noticed immediately was Jim Cummings. He is the guy who voices Lore Walker Cho in World of Warcraft. And he's also the guy who voices Pete from Goof Troop. So there's a bonus fact if you didn't already know. I think that pretty much covers all of the notes that I had on here. I'm trying to be thorough enough for someone who has never played Hearthstone to understand what's going on here, and then comparing the two, because I have to. It's impossible not to compare the two if you've played both. Final thoughts. The Elder Scrolls Legends is a nice, refreshing take, specifically because it is new and everyone is trying it for the first time, to something that is already well established and well put together. It does not mean that it is better. It is different. It has a different style of gameplay. That is going to evolve. Guarantee you. Hopefully with proper balancing, which again, we are in beta, so stats and everything, if there's an overpowered card, it will change, I'm sure. Hopefully there will be enough disparity between the two so you do have a choice, but you enjoy both. I want them to compete. I don't want them to be carbon copies. They are not carbon copies as of right now. This one requires a little bit more thought than Hearthstone does. Sometimes you don't want to think, you just want to go in and do Face Hunter, and that's okay too. The fact that we have a choice as consumers and can also play both, since they are both free, keep that in mind, that word, free, it does nothing but benefit us. Elder Scrolls Legends, ladies and gentlemen, available through Bethesda's launcher. I will put a link in the description down below so you can use that. Let me know what your thoughts are on this one, because I'm very curious. And again, if I was factually incorrect on anything that I've said, please feel free to correct me in the comments below, because I would like to know for sure some of the things on here that I am kind of questioning. And give it a like if you liked the video, dislike it if you didn't, and subscribe if you want more content. My name has been Asher. Take it easy.